Everyone, sorry for that delay. Welcome to Admiral Markets, our live trading room on the 24th of July, Wednesday. First of all, I want to quickly establish if you can hear me first of all. Alrighty, great. Perfect. Glad to hear that. So I hope no one left in the meantime, but with that said, let's move on to this PowerPoint quickly, take a look at the economic calendar, and then we can take a look at the charts as always and see if there's anything interesting to trade. All right, so the risk disclaimer explaining that trading foreign exchange on margin carries a high level of risk, of course, and trading global financial markets in general is considered high risk as well. Please be aware of that and seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational purposes only. Now we're going to be looking at a live trading room and looking at live charts on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. All right, tomorrow will be a session, of course, but next week, by the way, there will be no sessions on all 3 days as I will have 1 week off. Okay, we're taking a look at my own money, and we'll be taking a look at multiple time frames and trading strategies, especially breakouts. A breakout occurs when you have a impulse followed by a correction, and that correction is broken. Make sure to follow Admiral Markets in social media, Twitter, and Facebook. And with that said, let's move on to the Forex calendar. We had a few hours ago some news release on the Aussie, which caused a pretty interesting price development there on the 1 minute chart, moving up and down really very violently. It was just a tad negative, 2.4 versus 2.5 forecasted. At the moment, we had Chinese PMI also just a tad negative there. We have this morning only a couple of Euro news that are medium and lower impact. And the only high impact later on today is the USD new home sales. And way later, 15 hours from now, the New Zealand interest rate announcement. So that could be something to be aware of because the interest rate announcement is key for any currency, also for the New Zealand. And in that regard, it might be tricky to trade in New Zealand. It could be quiet on New Zealand maybe. It might be best to avoid New Zealand if, you know, still 15 hours is a long time from now. So, but the closer we get, you know, the more careful we want to be. All right. So let's move on and take a look at the charts. We're going to take a look at, this is the euro yen I was looking at. Let's start with our classical euro dollar as always. And while we were analyzing it yesterday intensively, of course, and well, I hope that the analysis helped you yesterday because we were saying that the currency is an uptrend, and even though the move during our session was slightly down, remember here we actually peaked here, remember, and it couldn't break the stop. I said the stop is very important. We could stay in a wedge. We didn't do that too long. Actually, we moved down, but then we found support because we're in an uptrend. When we make a retrace, that's when the buyers step in, and you can see what happened. And I took this break right in here and caught some pips. All right. So I adjusted the trend line to incorporate the new price information, and the trend line was a bit shallower like this, and that was a great break. All right, nice break to the upside on the euro dollar, and that's, in my opinion, the best way to trade it, because if you start, you know, focusing on that downside, you would probably even miss this upside, and the downside really didn't go too far once you're in a trend. And the currency is correcting. It has the high probability that it just doesn't go anywhere. So I hope that you can see the benefit of this method, and you can see, I hope you benefited from that up move as well on this euro dollar. You can see it went to target here. Let me place a fib on this last up move here, and you can see, and take this one off, and you can see if you put a fib on the last swing high, swing low, where we bounced off the 786, we went right to target. Right? That's how you can establish that. Alrighty. So, anyhow, with that said, the euro dollar is still in the same position. Nothing has changed. Yes, there is maybe a rising wedge pattern to be discovered, but I would be very careful with trading at and only really wait for break of support levels. All right, so we have these top lines, these bottom lines here, indicating that rising wedge. And I'll take this trend line that's well away, so we clear up the charts a bit. That was yesterday's break. I'll take it away. So this is the current pattern. That is a rising wedge just because of the fact that yesterday we didn't move that much to the upside. All right, but there's nothing that says that we necessarily have to break the bottom trend line. We could also break the upper trend line and do this. All right, right to this target. Both are possible. Although it does look like a rising wedge, I've seen these things break to the upside many, many, many times. The only thing that we can say from this is that the angle is weakening. All right, so we have two good trend lines, and a break of both of them have value for us. The break of the top, but also the break of the bottom. But the break of the bottom, I would still be leery and careful of this 4-hour support right in here. That could definitely provide support to the currency, even if it breaks that bottom trend line. All right. Always be aware of that. So with that said, let's see if we get a bounce. Let me move the fib now a bit higher. You can see we bounce off the 618 here. Let me zoom into the 50-minute chart. All right, you can see that we're bouncing off this bottom of the trend line maybe. And there's a smaller 50-minute trend line maybe to be placed. It's a very small correction, so the trend line isn't as valuable in my opinion, but it could give an indication when we do continue to the upside. The stochastics was way down at 9 here, but that was actually almost half an hour ago. So not sure if you caught that buy. That was a good 5-minute oversold position in an uptrend. That is always a possibility to make enough move there. All right, doing pretty well there. Some 10 pips now at the moment. So let's see if we get a break. I think that a break of this trend line, we can monitor maybe on the 1-hour chart, see how the 1 hour is very bullish. Let's see how this 1 hour kind of closes. What happened the last? Wow, it just gapped. Why did it just gap? It gapped 15 pips to the upside. That is pretty interesting. The news, yeah. Let's take a look at that. But that was supposedly medium and light impact news. That doesn't happen that often, that a light or medium news creates such an effect of a 15 pip gap. Interesting. Especially if you look at the results, which are only just a tad more than expected on the PMI, French PMI. Interesting. Well, we have a gap in a 1-minute doji there. Let's see if we can fill the gap. Kind of makes it funky here, if you look at the 1-minute chart at least. Doesn't it? That looks funny to me. Anyhow, 1 hour chart is about to finish. Looks pretty bullish. So could be another long here, maybe upon a retrace, for example, back to support here. Could be an immediate one upon the fractal break actually. but I'd rather maybe be a bit more cautious at this early hour and see how price develops in the next hour, in the coming hour, I mean. All right, so no rush. Let's take a look. I think, looking at this currency setup, I think even a fib bounce was, looking at that, pretty prudent. I took myself a 618 bounce right in here on a different account. That's doing pretty well. That's always a bit more risky, taking a fib level itself, right? But sometimes you do catch the exact turning spot, right? It's always a bit more risky because there's always the risk that that particular fib is not the turning spot and the currency retraces lower. Like here, for example, we had a 50 bounce, right? But we still went lower to the 618, right? That happened, that 618 bounce, as I said, happened 30 minutes ago, not before our session, but it was also oversold on the 5-minute chart, so that, as I already said, that would have been a good buy, but that's behind us now. But it's always a bit more risky. So let's see if we how this develops. Let me take a quick look at pound and see if we have a London open trade. Probably not, knowing the pound, but nowadays it likes to break between 1 hour before the London open and we take a quick look here. Looks like we did indeed again. Here too, we made it upside. We even broke the top again, and we've made a few corrections to the downside here. Here too, a bullish 1 hour candle. Here too, though, reason to be a bit more cautious if you look at this setup. Also kind of a rising wedge. So, good to know about, good to be cautious about. And when we break that lower line, definitely we want to be more careful with longs. All right, probably not take any longs actually, just be neutral at the moment and see how the currency behaves when it moves down. If it's very violent, then it's likely to continue at least one more time. All right, something like this. If it stays above that orange line, there's nothing wrong with still trying to catch a long at good spots because it could continue up as well. All right, so same story as the euro here. Wow, it's really moving up a lot. This pound is racing like crazy. Wow. 30 pips in the last 1.5 hours. The last 10 minutes is really flying up. Wow. Big movements here on the 5 and 5-15 minute chart. Is that the euro too? Euro not so much, so it's probably the euro pound as well that is moving to the downside. Interesting, breaking out of that resistance. Yeah, that's a bit too late now. I mean, this was maybe a correction here, a break of that resistance could have been a valid setup. I'm always a bit leery and careful and cautious of the pound though at this early hour, and tend to be more careful. The London Open trade is something that I would definitely trade the first hour, but we had a break first to the downside, so it looks like it's a typical false move down, and let's see what this up move really is. It's definitely moving very fast. Let me take a look where the Asian session is. All right, the Asian session high is here. So that could be a temporary resistance that we're bumping into here. I wouldn't be surprised. we could find some resistance here. But looking at the speed and aggressivity that we've had to the upside here, at least one continuation is likely. I think if we do find resistance somewhere in here and make a bull flag pattern, a break continuation is a good thing, a good trade. At the moment, it's very tricky. It's you know, although the candles are moving, it's not really tradable at the moment. At least I can't see a way to trade it because it's just ongoing. The only thing, it's just a one movement so far. We're back at the resistance, so we could break through it, but I wouldn't plan on it. Let me say it this way. Yeah, Mohammed, that's true. Maybe King is maybe the King is helping the pound here. Governor King. The next news announcement is on German PMI in 23 minutes. Well, anyhow, I suggest to look at something else. Let's take a look maybe at the euro because the pound is just let's keep an eye on this 5-minute chart. It could be it could make maybe a retrace to retest this bottom or stop somewhere in here. That would be interesting. So I'm going to keep an eye on this 5-minute chart and see if there's something interesting to take. I mean, in theory, in fact, I think at this moment, if I look at all the price action, multiple time frames here on 1 hour 15, I would think any long right in here should work fine. The only reason why I'm not taking it now is because I want a bit more information. Maybe it'll go a bit deeper than right here to get a bit better price. But in fact, this level itself is already equal to the break of this 50-minute resistance. So that could be a breakout trade already aiming for this minus 272 at around 132.60, for example. There's always a chance of a false breakout, but looking at price action, the fact that the 1 hour candle is looking that bullish, I would think that the likelihood of a false break is relatively small. I'm not too worried about that. You never know. Nothing is a guarantee, but wouldn't be too worried about that. All right. Let's take a look at other opportunities maybe, but I'll keep an eye on this. If you have any preference or any opportunity that you think would be interesting, let me know. I think that the yens made a pretty good hook back as well, the euro yen and pound yen. Yesterday we were trading that. I left the order on because we were talking about it in our session, and the break happened basically like 35 minutes after we closed the room. Right, we were looking for this break. It took some time here. Tested the tops a few times here. This trend line 1, 2, 3 times. 4th time we got the break. Currency did its job, and it was really a very impulsive break. So I hope that you got those pips and went right to the 618 target, which was the target mentioned. So that was really fastest trade you cannot get on this type of trading, even on a 50-minute chart. It took 2.5 hours, took 2 hours to set up, and that's kind of the time factor that you're kind of looking at, even if you're trading a 15-minute chart. So can you imagine? You really need a lot of patience in trading. It just takes a lot of time. If you want to trade faster than that, you really have to even look at 1 and 5-minute charts and I was very happy with the break. I was very happy with how it broke because it was very impulsively. So once I saw the power surge coming to the market, I was 100% felt very secure and made a nice 2-to-1, 1% profit trade there. Felt very secure, no worries at all, no stress, because I knew that with that power in the market, the minus 618 was a guarantee. And it went right to there, went a bit above it. But so that was a nice 50 pip trade for 25 risk, because I put my risk under the 15-minute fractal. So that's good. Now in the meantime, we traced back, and I see that some of you took that trade. That's great. I'm very happy about that. Congratulations. Good job. And we've hooked back to the 618 fib, and I've entered there again. All right, because it still looks good to me. It looks like a hook back, a pullback. This is basically what I did was here, the break. This was the break. This is the pullback. And what we're getting now is actually the continuation, hopefully. Well, it's at least continuing a bit. Let me say it this way. All right, we'll get the full confirmation of reach the targets, of course, but definitely looks like it's found support and moving to the upside. So this can keep on going. The only thing I don't like about it at the moment, and there's nothing I can do about that, is that we're right at that top. I don't like to go long right before resistance. That's just my motto. That's my rule. Even if whatever happens, how appealing or tempting a move might like or might seem, I never go long just before a daily high or a top or resistance level. So in this case, that would invalidate the current setup. Unless we break this top, make a small bull flag here, and then break, that would change things, right? So unfortunately, it has moved a bit too much the last hour. All right, when I was analyzing it this morning, it was somewhere here, so I still had it on my list. Alrighty, let's see if the pound yen is in the same. Yeah, it looks like it too basically. It too had the same setup. In fact, a breakout, pullback, continuation, but it too is now right at the top here. So that too is tricky to trade. It hit the 886 fib, so it went a lot deeper. Bounced more or less off that orange trend line, so it was a break of the trend line, pull back to the trend line, bounce off the trend line. But this too is out of reach at the moment. So let me, I have to script those off the list. But here too, just like the EJ, good trading to the upside. So let's move on. I don't see any preferences so far from you, so I'll just continue with my list. Let's see. I had some potential interesting currencies. Let's take a look at maybe the Euro New Zealand. It has the New Zealand. That's the only disadvantage, right? We said be careful of the New Zealand today. So that's a bit iffy maybe, but it's still a good trend line here, and we actually hit that trend line right now, right? Not so long ago. So a break of that trend line, I think, would be a good trade to the upside, just like the EJ. So let's see if we break that. If we do, I think that it has the validity to trade it to the upside. Because it is a 50-minute chart, I mean, we got 15 hours to that interest rate decision. I think it's tradable on the 50-minute chart and get out within a few hours. So that's okay. So I like this. This is definitely on my watch list. And the reason, let me go through the reasons, is that I don't know how far back I want to go, but for example here, the day chart, clearly impulse correction here. And we bounced at the 382 fib. Then we have impulse, and this is looking like a bull flag. All right, and yesterday we were actually analyzing and saying a break of the bull flag is an interesting trade. A move maybe down from here, a bounce could be a trade, or when we break this support down to the bottom of the trend again, right? One of the three. Or we actually said a bounce off here is very likely, and that could be a good trade. I didn't take it myself because I was already in the euro yen. I don't want to expose myself to euro trades, but it did bounce. Look at that. Here too, just like the euro dollar and euro yen. I hope that some of you were able to catch this. If you took the euro yen, no problem, because then I too didn't take this because I don't want to spread the risk. It's basically the same spot. But if you didn't take the euro yen, I hope you took this one because it was a good place to bounce, as you can see, and it made a nice rally. So here too, hope that advice helped you, and you got some, would have at max could have gotten somewhere around 80-90 pips there. All right. In the meantime, we've traveled. As I said, we're going to probably respect that trend line, which we have done so far. So the question is, are we going to break or bounce right now? Looking at this current setup, because at that time I didn't know how the currency would look like, and if I look at the current structure, I would say a break to the upside is the only thing I'm interested in. It could break to the downside, but I'm not too interested in that. Why is that so? Because if I look at the 1 hour candle, it's a huge bullish candle. I wouldn't trade against that unless we really break out of this trend line here, this lower trend line. All right. Anything above that I wouldn't touch, although it could bounce off that trend line. Looking at price action, I'm leery of that and skeptical and wouldn't want to try that. Although it could work, I don't think it's worth it. So only the upside break would be interesting just because of the structure, in my opinion. Now, if we break that green line, that of course changes the reality, and then we're breaking a bigger structure. Yes, sorry if that wasn't clear. I'm looking, indeed. I'm only interested in the upside break, indeed. Elkanah, yes. If that was your question. Looking for a break of that top orange line, indeed. Okay, great, Elkanah. Yeah. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that. But the only thing I'm interested in is the break to the upside at the moment. And I'm not interested in a bounce here to the downside because of this price action signal prior to it. And I would only be interested in a downside once we break the green line and support here. Then it could be interesting for a small trade to the downside. Otherwise, up here. Okay, cool. Great, Elkanah. Great. It's a bit tricky because the trend line is here. So would you want to, we could take the break of this fractal or the fractal higher? That's the question. Both have validity and both are possible. I guess it depends how aggressive you want to trade it. More aggressive trader would take the lower fractal to reduce the risk, reward to risk. The more cautious trader would wait for the higher break, this one here. It does have a lower R2R, but the advantage is that the chance of taking a false break or a small break and then a turnaround is becoming smaller. You could still have something like this happen, break this fractal, hit the trend line again, and then move down. That's the risk. If you want, if you don't want to counter that, then either waiting for a break of this fractal or waiting for the new fractal that is hitting the trend line would be best. I'm going to opt for the second option. I will either wait for this fractal to be broken or wait for the next fractal to hit this trend line and then move it just a tad lower to take the next break. If that makes sense. So either this fractal or if we get a new fractal that actually touches that trend line, right? Okay. So definitely very interesting. Let me take a look at the euro dollar in the meantime. See what's going on here. Let's see, we've had 4 candles not able to break that high. The 1 minute gap is still there. So let's see if the next 10 minutes we can break that top. If we can't, then you might get a bit bigger retracement. The pound pushed again a bit further. Wow, I would say that this is very interesting. Let's see if this is finally the resistance spot or not. It's not tradable in my opinion, so I won't focus on it because it's only tradable if it would make a retrace and make a bull flag on the 5 minute and then the next break. That's the only thing that I really would look for. All right, so let's move on now that we've looked at these 5 currencies. Let me take a look what is on my list. I have Euro odd on my list, but it's very tricky. I was looking at this 4-hour chart and you can see why you can see why it's so dangerous to look for shorts in here. That's the problem if you anticipate a move without really, it could happen, I'm not saying, but you can see it's tough because the currency is moving sideways. It's not easy to break that support level. So assuming that it will is tricky. It depends where you took the short. If you took a short, if you took it at a local resistance spot where you can see some bearish price action, it's different than taking it here, of course, right before the support, which is not that good. But I hope it's clear why these key support resistances are important to know so that you are aware of them and you're not trading right in front of them. And the euro odd just proved that. I know that some people were looking for downside, and I can see that. I can understand why they think that, and it makes sense. It's very important to wait for the break of the support first, in fact, before it's kind of tradable. Or you have to be very, very good in picking a spot. Like, for example, 1-hour chart, if you see engulfing twins like this, well, that could have been maybe a reason to take it, but didn't really go that far. Now we had a major, major, major news event on the Aussie, apparently, because it really rocked and rolled on all Aussies. And this is a really funky candle with a massive wick at the bottom and a bullish close. That signals, to me, a bullishness. That's a very bullish price action signal. And the likelihood of upside continuation, I would say, is decent. This was also on my list, the euro odd. And let's see. Basically, we broke out of 50-minute world. We broke above this resistance already. We're making higher highs and higher lows. Except this dip here went a bit lower, maybe. But the problem is that although I have a bullish bias because of the price action, It's not an easy structure to trade, in fact, just because the price movement is so big from that 1 hour candle. It's not easy. It's a 100 pip candle. And we're halfway that range. Originally, I was thinking to trade the break of this high. But if I reanalyze it, then I also realize that we're quite close to this top, in fact, and we're halfway to range. So I had it on my list here prior to our session, but now that I reanalyze it and rethink about it, I think it's kind of iffy. So I'll move on for the moment. I don't know. It's not that great, maybe. Not as great as I was actually had in my mind, an hour ago. Let me say it this way. So let's skip it. Let's go to. Okay, someone has a. Okay, now you have a question about CAD. Let's take a look. The 1 hour and 4 hour charts are in a downtrend in the meantime. We're back at resistance in a way. We have divergence on the 4 hour chart, so that could be a reason. Also, we should note that on the day chart, we are definitely at a bouncing spot. We could correct a bit lower. Let me put a fib on this up move here. Yeah, you can see that if you look at this recent price action here, that we're actually just below the 618. So just because there's a trend line, we could still push maybe to this level. That's still a support at 786, and the moving average is there around 102.45. We could make that small fall still. That would definitely be a bouncing area. This could in itself could be a bouncing area as well, indeed. This whole region here could be a bouncing area. Plus we have divergence. So the question is if we make that small fall still. On the 1 hour chart, you can see that that fall could happen. We're back at resistance. I wouldn't be surprised to see at least, at minimum, I don't know, at least a move down here to retest this bottom, and then is the question, do we break it or do we bounce from there? So let's see if that happens indeed. Personally, I don't trade these types of bounces because it's a huge, well, sometimes I do, but it is quite a massive trend line. I like a bit more 1 hour trend lines. Let me say it this way, this is more like a daily trend line. And a daily trend line, in my opinion, the accuracy of a trend line decreases. I think that the lower type, I know that maybe sounds funny, but I have a feeling that the trend line, like a 1 hour, 4 hour, maybe because the price action is closer to the trend line, but that's my feeling in here. But a trend line bounce is possible indeed to catch that, but we would have to wait at least for a 1 hour break of the fractal at minimum, which is currently here, but I don't trust that fractal that much. But that would be the minimum. Or wait for a retest and a bounce here. The only thing I don't like it is the fact that I can see that potential of going down to this level. So that makes me a bit more leery of that. A bounce off this level would make it better, I think. Would make it easier to trade. Now I have a feeling we're exposed to risk to the downside here. If we were to break above this level, though, then it is a valid, valid way to trade a bounce. Let me say it this way, from there or from here or from the 786. But the break above this or the 786 is a bit better than this one, I think, because that's a bit iffy because of that risk to go to the downside. If you want to trade with the trend, you would need to wait for a break of 104. 104 or 103.70, 104, this level, we would need to break, hook back, and then we're at an uptrend. Wow. Yama. It was exactly the sixth candle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exactly the sixth one. Should have kept an eye on that. The gap though, wow. That's the German PMI again. Kind of crazy. Wow. Very good news indeed, apparently. PMI manufacturing slightly above. Services PMI 1.7, that's even more. That's good. I like it. It's good for my fib bounce trade at least, so I'm very happy. But we didn't catch it here. That's a pity. Well, as I said, maybe I should have just taken it here. I was kind of trying to see if I can get a better entry, but sometimes you miss the trade. But maybe some of you caught it. I did say here, right here, it was very valid as well. I was just greedy. But this was definitely a valid break of the 50-minute fractal right in here. So, well, if you did, that's going very well. If not, doesn't matter because there are always plenty of opportunities in the market, okay? The target, I would say 132.55-ish here. Is a minus 272 target. Let me put this fib on. There's a minus 618 target, also a bit higher at 132.61. All right. So it's moving up fast. Very good. Let's keep an eye on it for the fun of it. Well, let's go back in 5 minutes. I want to see basically if it just keeps making higher highs here on the 5-minute chart. If it does, that would be great because that's the impulsive part of the trade. And if once it stops, that for 30 minutes, that would mean the end of the impulse and a high likelihood of a correction happening. So that would be interesting to monitor that. And we can maybe optimize. If you don't want to take profit, that would be one way of trail stopping it. All right. Using time factor. It's a great way. If you realize that you're in an impulsive part of the trade, it's a fantastic way to basically trail stop a trade, because you kind of let the currency go as far as it wants to go, and then you kind of know when, instead of what price, the impulsive part is over, and the correction could take quite long, and you'll skip all that corrective price action. That's great. So it's a pretty neat way of trail stopping that. So let's keep an eye on this 5-minute world, but we have at least 5 minutes to the next candle. So interesting though. Let's move on. I think Kalen asked for CAD yen. That too was just like pound and euro yen. I didn't take this one because I didn't want to basically take the same setup as the euro yen. I don't think that makes sense. But it had a similar setup just like the pound yen as well. In fact, you can see here too the break of this trend line and a pullback to the 618 or maybe 50 fib, depends how you put that fib. All right. So, but the same bounce basically. Nice pin bar off the 50 fib or 618 and moving to the upside. So exactly the same story here. Well, it's possible, Kalen. You know, we are. That's why I would never go long here, because we are back at resistance, and the currency, when it does reach that level, it could use that to move down again. So if you are in a long, if you took a long here, that's great, because that is it was a good bouncing area. But there's no reason to have that risk on the table. You might as well move to +1 if you took it somewhere in here, because you don't want to be in the trade if it does this. So great long, congratulations. Move it to break even and hope the trade breaks and goes to target and you have a profit. And if not, no sweat, you didn't lose. Your trade is something different. That is, it's a valid one in a way, in the sense that we do have many tops here. So established resistance, and we're moving back to that resistance. It's not a typical trade that I looked for, as you know, but if I don't trade it, doesn't mean that it's not a valid idea. It's just not what I'm looking for in trading, in my trade plan. Let me say it this way. But I definitely see the merit of it and the logic of it. So yeah, good job. Let's see. We do have maybe this rising wedge on the day chart. It's massive because it started in June last year. So that's not something. No, June this year. Sorry, it's not a day chart. It's a 4-hour chart. Excuse me. I thought these were day candles. But anyhow, it's still a massive structure. And rising wedge with triple top. That could see it at least move back to this support line and maybe break. It's possible. Let's take a look at the day chart. 93. Cadence target is 93. All right. Let's see on the day chart. That makes sense because if you look at this, we are above the 50 fib, in fact. So maybe we can push up to the 618, and that could be the turning spot. Could be the turning spot could be right here, I'm not saying, but there is a potential to go to that 618. It was respected here at the 50. It was respected at the 382. So maybe the 618 will be respected as well. So either of those could be the turning spot, or at least a resistance spot. And this was a pretty good impulse. And this looks definitely like a correction on the day chart. So somewhere in here could be the turning spot for a move to 89 or 86 here. The 272 and the 618 target. So good idea, good analysis there, Kalen. $97.45. $97.45 is a bit unlucky because it's just 5 pips below the 618. But yeah, that's unfortunate. But I wouldn't change it because then you're really exposing yourself to more risk. Unless you have taken this trade with a lot less risk than usual, and by increasing it, you would just inch the risk to a level that's still acceptable. I know that we've said in the stop loss webinar never to do that, but if it fits within the risk management parameters, I would say that it's still okay. Otherwise, yeah, then otherwise I wouldn't do it. Alrighty. Oh wow, the euro yen is moving very nicely. That's great for my trade. Pound did find resistance there. So it's probably going to make a bull flag right now, I would think. As I said, it's high likelihood of a resistance at least, especially around this time of day. And how's our euro doing? The euro did make a new high again. That's important. All right, so interesting. Let's keep an eye on this 5-minute chart, and we'll trail stop that long if you took it. And I will for my own account as well for this 618 bounce here. How's that euro odd doing? Probably popped up as well, didn't it? Yeah, it did move up. I chickened out, I have to admit. Because this was an hour before our session. I like this setup here, break of this fractal. And then I had second doubts when I saw actually, I don't know, I had second doubts because of this bigger range that we were in. A shame, but that's a pity. Moved up 75 pips already versus a 25 risk. That's already a 3-to-1 right there. Yikes, that's painful. Really was bullish price action signal. I really like this. Well, anyhow, we can learn from it then. Really like this bullish price action signal right here, right? And small sideways zone. And if you look at the 15-minute world, you can see the price is moving back to moving averages here. Shame. Should have trusted my initial instinct there, or analysis. Anyhow, let's move on. I'm afraid that all these euros. Well, what happened with the euro New Zealand actually? Okay, forgot about that one. So we broke above that level already. Maybe okay, now you're already in it. The stop loss I always use is the opposite fractal. It's a pretty big stop loss in this case for a 15-minute world, but this level itself could be a target already. It's a 4-hour resistance. I know that the trade is not great. It's just like a 1-to-1 here. But this could be a pausing area. Maybe the best way is to monitor this 5-minute world and just, because it's a pretty big stop loss, just trail stop it using this 5-minute world and see how far it goes instead of aiming for a take profit. Here too we could use that 5-minute stop loss idea. Basically everywhere on the euro. So I think that it doesn't make sense to look at euro crosses because they're all on their way. Euro New Zealand, euro odd, euro dollar, all of them broke. Euro yen. So those don't make sense. Those don't make sense to trade now. The only thing is left is trail stopping in and trying to lock in as much as profit here as possible. Euro yen broke this high Pound yen, not yet. It's at the high, at the top. So maybe something else we can find. Let me take a look at my list. Yeah, pound odd, basically also the same break to the upside, in fact, or bounce off this trend line, support trend line. Here too, we're breaking. There's the same setup as the euro odd. This exact same structure. So it was really a copy. No, it doesn't make sense to take both of them. Let me take a look at this euro, this dollar yen. That's approaching the top again. Remember yesterday I said a break right in here is not good because we're exposed to too much risk. Well, anyhow, we didn't break. We bounced from there, found support back at here, and moving back to that same trend line. Kind of iffy because it's just stuck in this big range like this. But we are back at maybe a break level. Even though we are in this range, it could have the potential to go back to the top blue line. But it's not my favorite. It could work, but somehow I'd rather look for a better opportunity. I just don't like this type of sideways chop and taking a break that happens about halfway, if you see my point. If not, let me know, but otherwise, I mean, it definitely could make that trade. I'm not saying, but I still think that trading a break like this halfway a range is iffy-ish. Maybe there's something better. You can see the moving averages are totally flat. There's no angle to it, which indicates that range. So, nah. Let's take a look at the euro again, see what happened. Last 5 minutes, we had a bit lower low here. Alrighty. What else do I have on my list here? Maybe euro pound. Let's take a look. Yeah, euro pound. Well, it has the euro again. That's the problem. They all broke. Here too, was looking at this support level. These blue lines I have here on the chart, where we broke the tops. Basically, we broke resistance. We're back at that resistance, former resistance, which has a likelihood of acting as support in the future, which apparently does. So a break of these fractals to the upside could be the trigger to the upside. But here too, I forgot the euro totally has moved. So let's see the Aussie maybe. Let's take a look at the Aussie. Aussie is breaking the support trend line after making a bit of a false break here of that trend line to the upside, bumping into that bigger resistance that we have here on these two blue lines that I have on the chart, right? That's that resistance zone that we definitely need to break through before becoming a bit more neutral or bullish. Yeah, that's looking pretty bearish now with that break, actually. I know that I myself was expecting a bigger reversal as well here eventually, but not sure if that's going to happen. Let's take a look at this viewing chart. Definitely breaking below the support, but if you look at the 4-hour chart, you can clearly see that there are definitely some support levels here to reckon with. So it could fall to those levels, but a break of those levels is not a guarantee. And in fact, even if it were to break above this level, it could be, well, that's a bit risky. I wouldn't do that. I really wouldn't look for longs unless we break above that bigger resistance zone that I was talking about earlier. But all right, let's see. So no, not that interesting at the moment. Still caught within that support and resistance. Let me move on to something else. Let's see. How's our Euro CAD doing? Euro CAD is back at support, bouncing off that. It's pretty stuck in that bull flag or sideways range, depending how you look at it. Doesn't really look that interesting. It too has the euro in it though, so let's move on to see if there's anything else. Let's see. Which one did I not look at yet? The yens don't have much to do because they're either at resistance. Maybe the euro yen, if it were to give some, it's just see it just keeps on moving. We need at least there's some retrace. The pound is making that retrace. Now, if the AO goes back to the zero line, then that could be the moment where the pound is back on track. But I'll be still a bit careful here with the pound. But if it does move to the zero line, that could be the moment that the retracement has been fulfilled. How about the pound Swiss? It's not on my list, but I'm just scanning the charts if there's anything interesting at the moment. Moved back to the 786 fib. Very wacky price action here on the pound Swiss, as you can see. It's 1 minute chart. Yeah, it's wacky. It looks like we're in a downtrend, but we're making a pretty sturdy up move. I'm making this rising wedge slash upward channel. I don't know. I don't see anything I can trade here at the moment. Check the 50-minute chart. No. Let me take a look at the Swissy. Kind of looks like the euro, but then of course the opposite here. We have kind of a falling wedge pattern, but it is moving down and clearly in the downtrend. No, that doesn't. Okay, that doesn't look that well. Euro is making now a retrace. Let's see if we can find support somewhere soon. Should find some support for one more up move. Looks funny with those gaps, doesn't it? It really looks funny. Two gaps. Should make a screenshot. Quite unique. Not a everyday thing. All right. To be honest, I think I've looked at all the currencies I normally look at. I don't really see anything interesting at the moment. I think that the only thing that was interesting was either the euro strength versus New Zealand Aussie dollar or yen, although the yen already actually bounced earlier. Otherwise than that, the pound yen has moved already, euro pound has moved already, pound Swiss is funky, dollar Swiss is the opposite of the euro, pound dollar is retracing, so when a pound and euro maybe finish the retracement, one more move up could happen. But that's going to be a while from now. There. Kaylin, take a look at that in a sec. Take a look at your CAD yen. I see it's. Do you hear me? I hope I still have connection here. Does anyone hear me? Oh, you can? Great. I'm happy because there's some. Do you hear that background sound as well? Oh, now it's gone. Yeah, strange. All right. CAD yen is still moving to the upside. That's why it's always a bit dangerous, taking a trade off resistance like that. But it definitely last time did also move to the downside here, right? So let's see. The euro dollar, I would only be looking for shorts if it either turns into a downtrend. Yeah, that's it. That's the only time I would be looking for shorts, which means a downtrend would have to be once we are having red candles on this trend definition on the 4-hour chart. As long as this is green, I'm looking for longs. My trading plan is very simple. I don't care if it runs into the biggest resistance on earth. I don't usually trade it. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't trade it or everyone should trade like me, but I'm not necessarily geared towards finding those resistance or support lines where the trend could end. Many who do, fair enough. I'm happy for them if they do well, but it's just not what I am focusing on. You don't even need this. It's indeed an indicator, and you don't even need it because you can just look at the chart here, and you can see price above moving averages on the 4-hour and 1-hour chart. That's all I need to know. And I'm only looking for longs. And yesterday and today, you can see why that has been wise. And looking for shorts would, in most cases, probably not have given much result, unless you really pick the perfect turning spot and pick the perfect bottom spot. and then still you only catch a few pips. Very tricky. Now, there is some bigger resistance. If you were to trade differently, I could see the validity, not that I would trade it, of looking for a reversal here around the 786 fib, which I used to do in the past as well, around 132.75. I think that's what you meant with the question. So I don't really see anything to trade at the moment. Sorry, folks. That's just the reality. But what can you do, right? You know, just because maybe you're not in a trade, don't force it, right? Don't focus on the past and the pips that you might have missed, right? But always try to focus on the future opportunities. That will help with trying to avoid jumping in trades. I think that many traders see a certain movement and think, oh wow, look at how this moved, and try to jump in at a certain spot just to see it retrace on them. And that's because probably they're actually jumping in right at the end of the move and they couldn't hold it anymore. And instead of, you know, looking at the facts and looking at the reason and fact that actually the currency might be at a resistance spot, and that up move is finished. So don't try to never focus on the pips or movement that you've missed. Always focus on what's going to happen next. What is the next opportunity? What is the next? What are the facts right now? What are the levels? What is the next movement? It's better than focusing on the past, right? Because we can't control anyhow. Once we entered, we can't control the market. So, you know, whatever happens, happens. We can only thing we can do is do our best to analyze and follow our trade plan before trading. And once we're trading and in a trade, then we cannot control the market anymore. We cannot do that. So we might as well just accept the fate and not let any one particular loss affect us, because it doesn't say anything about us as a trader. One trade is nothing, right? Only after 100 can we say that either our trading plan or the execution of the trading plan is not as good as we want it to be. But one trade should never affect us emotionally. Should never make us happy or sad, in theory. Of course, a bit of happiness is logical. Maybe a bit of sadness is too, but you know what I mean. It's better to view it as neutral as possible, to keep it more as a business instead of having it as an emotional roller coaster, right? Because whatever the market does and however we judged it and analyzed it and decided to do with it, it's not in our control and it doesn't reflect us. All right? Our job is to take advantage of the opportunities that the market present. We have to realize that we'll never be 100% precise with analyzing those opportunities. Always have a margin of error. All right, sorry for that rant there, but considering the fact that I don't see any trades, I thought I might as well say something useful, hopefully for you. So if you have no trades, no worries, just learn from the current day experience. All right, and try to see if there's a next opportunity. I don't see one at the moment, but I do see maybe later on, if this euro dollar, for example, were to make this retracement on the 5-minute world and make a bull flag here, and break one more time to the 132.70 area, it's possible. Now we haven't broken the high. now for how many candles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if the next candle doesn't break this top, then I think the likelihood of an immediate break is heavily diminished, and we could see that bigger bull flag being created. And we can see something like this. And then next break, although it's a very small structure, could be okay for a few pips there to 132.75. It's not much space, 30, 40 pips. It's not the best, probably not the best of trades, but that could happen. If you are in a euro-dollar long from here, then one way is to wait for this hook back here where I have the arrow and take it off about halfway around 132.45, because that will be a resistance spot if we don't break the current high immediately. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. I'll explain it again. If you took it at that blue line, 132.10ish, then I would try to take it off. Well, we'll confirm that in 5 minutes. If we don't break that high in the next 5 minutes, then I would take profit there at 132.40ish, 45ish. Because then it, when it does move up again, it'll probably find resistance and make a bigger bull flag. And then it could retrace almost back to the entry level and then still bounce. Something like I've drawn here on the chart. So that's the only thing I can see now in the future today. But nothing right now. The turning spot, yeah, that's difficult. It actually, in theory, could be this resistance line, although I would say going up to 132.60, where there's a minus 618 target, where I'll put a blue line there, top blue line where the 618 is, minus 618, right there, that right in here. That could be a likely target, 132.60 or 132.75 or 80, where we have a bigger 786 FIB. I think those are still very likely targets. And I would definitely see the currency go there. And I think that we will go there without breaking last hour's low, because it's a pretty bullish candle. So I don't see going down below 132.10 before moving up to 132.60, 132.80 at the moment. That's what I would think. I could be dead wrong, and this could be the final resistance spot right in here, and who knows? I think the chance is small, personally, but who knows? But I think that chance is really small. I think a retrace of this 1 hour candle, maybe halfway. We could stay here maybe 2 hours, find support here, and then move up to that level. That's what I would expect. So who knows? It has correct here. It has been correct here. Let's see if the next one is correct. Never know. It's moving down fast now. So I think the likelihood of an immediate continuation of that upside is really out of the window now. That's probably not going to happen. But we're probably going to see a bigger bull flag here, because it's already this is the current 6th candle. So we need 1 more minute. Doesn't look like we're going to break. So if it retraces about halfway between this top and bottom here, at the very top, I'll show you where. Sorry, between these tops and bottoms. So around 132.41ish here. About halfway, that if it moves back up, which it eventually will do, I think, that would be probably a bit higher, somewhere here, would be resistance, I think. And we'll see a small fall, and I would take profit here if you took that long in here. All right. Let's see. Not sure where the bouncing spot will be, but if you look at the 1 hour candle, or we could put a fib even, I guess, on this up move. And a 50 fib is typical, or 618 indeed. So that's anywhere around 132.15, 132.20. That could be a bouncing spot. I don't like the speed as how, yeah, that could be a bouncing spot. It's moving pretty fast down, I think, faster than I anticipated. If I would have anticipated that, I would have clicked out my long already a long time ago. Because I was still looking for that continuation, and it really didn't happen. That was really the end of the impulse. It was pretty small, so that caught me a bit of off guard. So I'm still in that long, right from the very turn here. It's a shame. It was up quite a good number of pips there. Anyhow, still, I think that at some point, maybe just 382, it's going to be some bouncing area. So somewhere in here, I plan on taking that profit from here. Okay. If you're not in the long and you think of planning the long indeed, then probably waiting for at least this to finish, like to the 50 or 618, and a 3-wave down, and this back to the 0 line, then here could be the bouncing spot indeed. It's a tricky spot, as I said, because of the rising wedge and stuff like that, but I think it's definitely a decent chance to move up to 132.7. Fingers crossed for that. Yeah, but looking at this, I would say really 132.15, the 618 fib, I would say is probably the max retracement we'll get before we get that upside. Let's see. It also depends. There's no time, no rush, because we can just wait for this to go to the 0 line and see where it ends and how price has gone. But looking at the current situation, we've got a nice supply and demand zone here too. 618 fib, probably even the 50. Wouldn't expect really any move below that. You see, we're already getting the bounce off the 382 as expected, or as a potential possibility. Looks like we're doing that. So yeah, those really, if it moves under that, I really would be surprised, and then the upside is becoming a bit more iffy as well. All right. Well, folks, I guess that's going to wrap up today. Otherwise, as I said, the euros, we could take a quick look how the euro. Yeah, this is the third candle. Well, take a look. If this doesn't break in the next 15 minutes, then here too, maybe a retracement of that down move would be a good take profit there. All right. If you can hear that. So yeah, that wraps it up, I guess. Have a great trading day. Wish you best of luck. Hope that euro, euro yen, euro New Zealand, euro odd, whatever you might have taken or not, goes well. And hope to see you tomorrow, Thursday. It will be the last session for a while. We have tonight, by the way, we have a webinar, not tomorrow evening, on the trade stages of a development of a trader. which is let's say 7 hours 45 minutes from now. So hope to see you then and tomorrow morning, and see y'all soon. Cheers.